Does this put too much pressure on Dak?
Well, it definitely, when you mention Troy Aikman, it definitely applies pressure. It doesn't apply any pressure when you mention Tony Romo, because as much as I like Tony Romo and my friend, the reality is that Tony Romo won 2 playoff games in his career in 9, 10 years as a starter, period. You're Dak Prescott. I think that's something you can overcome eventually. As hard as that might be for a Dallas Cowboy to imagine with the nauseating, disgusting fan base that they have, the reality is that it is possible. Troy Aikman, 3 Super Bowl championships. I am sick and tired of people who haven't accomplished so much being mentioned in the same breath as Troy Aikman. This is a 3-time Super Bowl champion who is not nearly as appreciated as he should be. Having said all of that, I think Jerry Jones is giving Dak Prescott these compliments because, A, I think it's long overdue, and I think, B, he knows it. Jerry Jones was very, very reluctant to move beyond the Tony Romo era to Dak Prescott. He procrastinated forever about it. It was like pulling teeth to get him to say kind, definitive words about Dak Prescott. But what Dak Prescott has proven is that he's a leader and that he can be trusted, which is something we were alluding to with Odell Beckham Jr. Dak Prescott can be trusted because he's had ample opportunities, receivers pointing the finger at him, fans looking at him and saying you can't do this without Ezekiel Elliott, players, once again, the latest, Terrence Williams, getting suspended for PED use and stuff. It's always something with the damn Dallas Cowboys. And somehow, some way, Dak Prescott, professional, just
He's
steady, classy, the whole bit. And I think that Jerry Jones, particularly in this day and age, appreciates that more than ever.
First, let me address the comparison to the other Dallas quarterbacks.
Okay.
Forget about the numbers in terms of passing yards, touchdowns, because the game changes.
Sure.
Let's look at the important numbers here. Where do they rank more or less in their era at their position? That tells you what you need to know. Tony Romo was never considered a top 3 quarterback. In his best years, maybe Dallas fans thought so. No one else really did. But he's a very good quarterback. Troy Aikman was frequently considered a top 3 to 5, sometimes 2 or 3, something like that. Was he better than Brett Favre or Kurt Warner? I'm trying to think of those 90s quarterbacks. Elway. You would probably take those guys at their best over Aikman at his best.
But he did have Emmitt Smith to rely upon, and they did not.
And like Emmitt Smith, with that behind that great offensive line, people would have taken Barry Sanders over Emmitt Smith. But Emmitt Smith was one of the very best running backs in the league.
Yeah.
And Aikman was one of the very best quarterbacks in the league. That is not, that's not Tony Romo, and it's not Dak Prescott. So let's leave Aikman out of this. On top of the fact, Aikman had 3 Super Bowl championships. Okay. Now let's talk about what he said about Dak. Does that take pressure off or put pressure on? The point is to take pressure off, obviously. Kid, you're not playing for your job. You're our guy. You're young. I believe, whether or not he's still ascending, what we've seen from you, that can be a franchise quarterback. In fact, though I know he means to take pressure off, I think it added pressure, if anything. Because you really couldn't make that comment about Dak even with as much certainty a couple weeks ago. When we thought we saw enough from Dak to know as a rookie, this guy's a franchise quarterback. But he has taken steps backward in recent years. Now, look, in the last couple of years, I understand a lot has to do with the offensive line being compromised and then the receiving core being compromised.
Lack of, yeah.
Yeah, but the offensive line's still pretty good, and he's got a great running back, and he's playing in a passing era where you're not allowed to touch the quarterback. So until this last game where he balled out, we were starting to question, Dak is a franchise quarterback, right? Meaning he's a middle-of-the-pack quarterback at least, and I think he has to continue to play that way. So Jerry, so now is the pressure on? You have an NFC East matchup, a rivalry game. Is the pressure on? Yeah, the pressure's on. I know Jerry Jones trying to take the pressure off by grouping him with guys who are long-term franchise quarterbacks. By comparison, he's kind of adding to the pressure.
I don't think he's trying to take the pressure off. I think he's acknowledging he's reached a point where it's time to start giving the kid credit where credit is due for carrying this franchise in the classy fashion that he's been doing it.
Let me ask you something about just Jerry specifically. Do you think he just talks, he just reacts, the microphone's in front of him, they just be the Jacks? Or do you think he's a guy, when we talk about a LeBron, he controls the narrative? Do you think he thinks about what he's going to say and he tries to put it out there?
I think it's a combination of both. I think that the camera is a magnet for him. I had the pleasure of meeting Jerry Jones face-to-face a few months ago.
I saw that picture.
There was no difference. Yes, that's right. I went over to the dark side. And I got to tell you something. I went over to the dark side because, I mean, this is sacrilegious what I'm about to say. I thoroughly enjoyed spending time with the man. The man could not have been kinder. He actually watched his first take. And he's like, look, man, he said, I got love for you because whether good or bad, you're talking about my Cowboys. And we had a ball. Me, him, you can ask Jason Witten. He was there as well. We had a ball talking with one another. Same Jerry. You ask him a question, he's going to give you an answer. He tries to be as honest as he possibly can be. And I think that what you have is a situation where, believe it or not, I'm going to say this because, again, I'm not 75, 76 years old yet. But just talking to him, I got to tell you something. The game keeps him young. And as a guy that covered sports, I covered the great John Chaney. I covered the great Larry Brown. These are Hall of Fame coaches, okay? And I played for the late, great Clarence Big House Gaines, God rest his wonderful soul. And John McClendon, one of the inventors of basketball who learned from James Naismith himself, was a mentor. I'm telling you, it was difficult for these guys to walk away from the game. They love it that much. And Larry Brown's coaching in Italy right now because he still doesn't want to walk away from the game. It happens with owners as well. You got a guy like Jerry Jones who played football. This stuff, he loves it. So when you're asking him about it, that's why he's doing most of the talking. He's doing more talking than Jason Garrett. He's doing more talking than the coordinators. He's doing more talking than the players because that's exactly how he wants it because it keeps him young. You could tell.